The Elden Ring Twitter account has recently been posting art of these starting classes. And frankly, they all look fantastic. They look so good. My favorite so far has been the Confessor and the Samurai. It looks to me like there's going to be a lot of Elden bling in this title. One of my favorite things to do actually is to cosplay like characters from previous titles. The Confessor looks like a good starting place to try and make a Bloodborne looking set, like a Church Hunter or an Old Hunter. And the Samurai armor, I'm very happy with that actually. My inner weeb is calling out to me, crying for me to get that armor. Because the previous Souls games did not have proper Samurai armor, and so I couldn't really cosplay as anything from Sekiro. If there's any more Eastern-styled armor like this, I could make a decent Genichiro cosplay. I really think this is going to be peak Fashion Souls, peak Elden bling. And that's kind of the problem. All of the starting classes have too much drip. I'm sorry, there's too much of it going on here. They are too cool, they are too established, they look too good, and the equipment that they have to start with looks entirely too much fun to use. And so I would like to offer a recommendation. I would like to give you a bit of advice. Instead of starting the game with any of these excellent classes, you should do what I do. You should play as the Wretch starting class, which is the class that starts with no armor and a stick. Now, let me explain why I think that this is a good idea. It's actually not about the difficulty this time. I'm not making a difficulty argument. I'm sure that playing as a Wretch does increase the difficulty because you start off with less stuff, but that's not the reason that I'm suggesting it. It's actually because the appeal of playing as a Wretch can only be maximized the first playthrough. Let me explain. The appeal, as far as I can see it, of playing with one of these starting classes is in experiencing how different these different playstyles are, and also to set you on the right path to what you think your build should be like. So if you start as a samurai, you're doing it because, like me, you're a weeb, perhaps, or because you simply like the high dexterity playstyle. And you want to play in that way as early as possible. The appeal it comes from seeing what it feels to play like as an astrologer throughout these early sections, as a bandit, as a confessor. And that appeal is not going to be greatly reduced by playing as a different class later on. Maybe a little bit because the newness of everything will be slightly less, but presumably you pick a different class to experience a different playstyle, and the playstyle will be so different, hopefully, that much of the fun is retained. However, this is not the case for the Wretch class, for the Deprived class. Because the appeal of the Deprived class is wholly different. Deprived start at level 1, the lowest level, and they have a base 10 stat on every statistic. And so choosing Deprived isn't really about giving yourself a boost towards the build that you want, because they're equally adept at every build. A Deprived can be just as effective a mage build as it can be a faith build, or a strength build, or a dex build. No, playing as a Deprived, playing as a Wretch, in my opinion, is about playing like an animal. It's about not having the luxury of being picky. It's about scrounging whatever the hell you can find out in the environment and using that until you can find something better. When you're playing as a samurai or a knight, and an enemy drops a piece of loot, and it's a short sword or a piece of armor, you're probably not going to care, because what you have on you is already really good looking and more defensive than what the crappy hollow enemy drops. Honestly, that samurai armor looks so good to me. That's probably something I would wear in the endgame. That's something I would wear to PvP. I'm afraid that if I pick the samurai class, I might never take that armor off, and I'll just wear that armor throughout the whole game. But the Wretch is not so picky. The whole appeal of playing as the Wretch class is not knowing where any of the armor is, or any of the spells are, and having to make do with whatever weapons or equipment I happen to find along the way. In this way, at least for the early game, every item that you pick up is probably a pleasant surprise. Progressing through these early levels, not knowing what's ahead of you, not knowing where any of the important things are, and having to make do with hodgepodge equipment is one of my favorite things about these games. And the problem is that that specific experience is maximized if you don't know what's coming, if you don't know what's ahead of you. If you play a different class, and then go back and play Wretch at a later date, you will already know where a lot of the important things are. So if you go in as a Wretch, and you intend to make this Wretch a mage build, you'll know where the important spell vendors are. Even if in that last build you didn't use spells, you might have simply run across them and not used their services. The fact that you now know where they are will, as a result, reduce the quality of your wretched experience. And the reverse is not as true to the same degree. The appeal of being a vagabond comes from playing as an armored knight. And the fun of playing as an armored knight doesn't really increase or decrease based on your game knowledge. Not much, at least. But the fun of playing as a lowly wretch and being forced to scavenge for whatever you can is heavily influenced by your game knowledge, and whether or not you know what comes along around the next bend. Now obviously, you guys can do what you want. You can play how you like. I am giving you the advice to play as a wretch because I want you to have a good experience. And this experience, which I value so highly, is one that you can really only have your first time through. And I would hate for you to miss out. It is a very specific experience with a very specific appeal. If you don't feel like you'd be missing out on anything, then fine, more power to you. But if you're even slightly interested in having that experience, you should go in being aware that you really only have one opportunity to get it. And that's the end of this video. As always, thank you very much for watching.